All right, everyone, welcome back into another NFL props video. Gonna be touching on the top prop bets for the Detroit Lions versus Dallas Cowboys game on Saturday night for both PrizePicks and Underdog. Let's go in and get into it. So starting off, guys, this is gonna be the exact opposite of the game that we were projected to get on Thursday night. Now, at the same time, that ended up working out in our favor, just given the fact that Vegas was right about how the game was gonna go. The Jets were playing from behind. We were able to cash this slip. And just, it's kind of interesting to note, Garrett Wilson's receiving yard got bumped 4, and so if you got to this late, it maybe didn't cash. Just interesting to note. It's the fine lines. That stuff does matter. But yes, looking at this game, this one is projected to be high scoring. 52 is going to be the over and under. 5-point spread in favor of Dallas winning. I would probably agree with that assessment. Looking at right now, guys, Rico Dwaddle is going to be out in this game, so that means we should be getting a pretty healthy dosage of Tony Pollard. That being said, this is going to be one of the best rushing offenses, one of the best rushing defenses in the league. So very interesting kind of what props we could be getting for Tony Pollard. Other than that, offensively, they are pretty much good to go. Looking at the Detroit Lions side of it, you know, they're also, relatively speaking, pretty healthy. So all in all, we don't have to do the kind of if-then statements. Now, it worked out, again, on Thursday with, like, Jason Brownlee, but that's going to save us some time in terms of, like, the injury report and whatnot. So let's just go ahead and take a peek at the snaps recently for Dallas, just to start out with, so we can get a good base of kind of what we're looking at. And this has been no shock, guys, in terms of the snaps. And in a weird way, this has kind of been the target share as well. It's been CeeDee Lamb obviously getting a healthy target share, and then from there it is Jake Ferguson, the next in the target share and air yards and everything. Like, he's the second best pass catcher, then Cooks, then Pollard. Okay, it's very much a funnel offense, and again, we could be seeing Tony Pollard maybe get a little bit more snaps in this game with Rico Dwaddle going to be out in this game. Okay, I do think that that is noteworthy, and so maybe that is something we're paying attention to as well. Like, hopefully we get some good props there. And then Jalen Tolbert, Michael Gallup, we don't really care about them probably. Going in and take a peek at Detroit in terms of kind of who we should be expecting to be productive. Just kind of looking over the Snapster, guys. ASB and Laporta have not been leaving the field. Okay, basically playing every single snap. Jahmyr Gibbs is someone that will probably get a little bit more work in this game, assuming that Detroit's playing from behind, assuming that Vegas is right now. 5 points is not a lot. You know, that could be a late game touchdown shifting the spread, right? Or field goal or whatnot, whatever. That's a close enough game. We're not too worried about blowout risk, but we have come to see that if they're playing from behind, if Detroit's playing from behind, it's going to favor more Gibbs. If the Lions are playing with the lead, it's going to favor more of David Montgomery. All in all, they're essentially going to be a 50-50 split for the most part. Just assume that is what I'm saying, okay? And then from there, Josh Reynolds gained about 50% of the snaps to, about 60. I do think that that is noteworthy. He has maintained that receiver number 2 position for this team. Jameson Williams is starting to creep up there, though, okay? So definitely noteworthy there. And then if they are playing from behind, you could expect Khalif Raymond to maybe get close to 40% of the snaps, but all in all, I don't think we're looking at that really at all. All right, so let's go ahead and get into the prop bets that we are currently getting for this game. We are seeing a discrepancy there for Tony Pollard, both on PrizePicks and Underdog here and the projection data. So all in all, I think we can look at this, guys, and see that PrizePicks is definitely a little bit underweight for the prop line there. 15.5 is low compared to PrizePicks at 18.5. To me, that's a good starting point to be betting the over there. It is noteworthy that at 18.5, however, okay, this is basically being favored as a 50-50. So it's a small difference, but it can add up. And then from there for Dallas, we're not exactly getting that many great EV bets. Michael Gallup, for instance, 2 for his receptions. The data really likes the under there. All in all, I probably agree with that, but that one is being valued as a push mostly there, that it's basically saying he is going to get 2 receptions. It's just not going to be likely that he gets more than 2 receptions. Okay, so if you want to go in on that, you could. Obviously, this is a very good matchup for receivers and whatnot. All in all, I probably am looking at more really CeeDee Lamb to have a great game, but really Jake Ferguson as well. The other running back, I do want to take a peek at, Tony Pollard here. The other kind of way of looking at Tony Pollard is that he does have the most difficult matchup for a running back, and so it would make sense to get him involved in the passing game. So all in all, I could kind of get behind that prop that we were getting with him. From there, let's take a peek at the other props that we're getting. Cooks potentially for over 3 receptions, not the best. The average sportsbook line is either giving it a 3 or a 3.5. All in all, they're kind of favoring the under at 3.3 on average. So at 3, it is seemingly the correct line. I don't really want to touch Tony Pollard at 15.5 rush attempts. On the underdog there, we can see that actually be a pretty good prop bet to be betting the under there, 15.5. To me, maybe where we are getting some edges would be with Jake Ferguson for over receptions. At 4.5, he was heavily likely to get 4.5 receptions to get that over. At 5, it's basically being valued as a push, with the under now slightly being favored. But for me, if this game is going to be that high scoring, Ferguson is going to be involved in the passing game. 8 targets in 4 straight games. That is not a fluke. He is their second best pass catcher. I think we're going to continue to see that occur. And so personally, I do like him to get 5 receptions. The issue is that it's most likely going to be a push. How can we really go in on that? You know, like the chances of him getting to 6 are obviously not elite. And maybe, just maybe, we could do receiving yards at probably 48.5 on underdog. We're getting a slight edge there. That would probably be the way to go with. Now, the issue that I have there is that he is more of a receptions guy and maybe more of a red zone guy. Like, to me, maybe the best prop that we're going to get for him is actually going to be fantasy score. There could be something there. And so all in all, these ones feel like we're kind of forcing them a little bit. I do want to take a peek at fantasy score. So yeah, that's going to be a little bit better. Jake Ferguson for over 11.5 for a fantasy score. I like that one. Dak Prescott at 51. That's not going to be that good. 51.2%. That's not that good. So all in all, the only good prop bet that I feel like we are truly getting for the Dallas Cowboys is going to be Jake Ferguson for over his fantasy score. A little bit touchdown dependent, don't get me wrong. But if he gets 5 receptions, if he gets around 50 receiving yards, he's kind of there. You attack on maybe a touchdown. He's obviously really crushing that over. And given the game total that we have, I know it's not that likely, but given that game total, it does increase his chances of scoring a touchdown. So now let's go ahead and get into Detroit, guys. So just right away, including the fantasy score, we are seeing Josh Reynolds is favored to get over 4 for a fantasy score. Yeah, that one seems very low. If we just look at his receiving yards prop, again, a little bit of a difference between both PrizePicks and Underdog. Underdog would have the line set at 18.5. PrizePicks would have it set at 16.5. You know, 2 yards is a big difference. All in all, I can get behind this, guys. I do think him getting 4 for a fantasy score is not a terrible idea, especially if they're a team that's going to have to be playing from behind, especially if he's going to continue to get around 4 targets in this game. And yes, don't get me wrong, he's been a little bit hit or miss, but given the game total that we have, you would expect him or Jameson Williams to have a good game. The data is liking him to have the good game over Williams. We have seen that flipped a couple of times thus far this season. From there, the next best one that we were getting is actually going to be Gibbs for over 10 for rushing attempts. Again, that's one where at 9.5, it was just too heavily favored for the over to hit. So PrizePicks and Underdog have both bumped this up to 10. And if we look at Jahmyr Gibbs, we can see his game log. Yeah, he has kind of been crushing it in terms of rushing attempts, which was a missing part of his game for most of the season. Really, when David Montgomery got injured, we actually saw Gibbs start to take over a little bit more. But again, do just remind you guys that if, let's say, Dallas gets ahead early, I think we're just going to see a lot more of Jahmyr Gibbs in the passing game, and both the running backs probably wouldn't be used that much in the rushing department. So to me, I can get behind it just because in this game, we're not getting that many great prop bets. That's one of the better ones that we were getting. I can get behind that, but all in all, I don't love it. Raymond, again, if they're going to be playing from behind, he probably will be on the field a little bit more. And so if you wanted to do 1.5 receptions under, you're basically saying that Detroit's probably playing with the lead there. ASB for over fantasy score at 17 is okay, but I just want to take a peek at that, guys. Same thing with Laporta at 12 and Gibbs at 14. So we are getting a bunch of interesting ones here. I want to take a peek at all 3 of those fantasy score ones. But first, just real quick, I do want to call out this for David Montgomery. So rushing attempts is set at 13.5. Again, if they're playing from behind for a majority of the game, we're going to see more Jahmyr Gibbs. So you could potentially game stack based off of the game script that you think is going to happen. If you think Detroit's playing with the lead, then obviously you'd want to bet Montgomery to get over his rush attempts. So yes, let's go in and jump into kind of all those over fantasy score props that we could potentially be on. So Jahmyr Gibbs, his fantasy score prop is currently set at 14. He has about a 53% chance to get the over. And so to me, if they are playing from behind, I actually do like the over a little bit better. Now, this is going to be probably the most difficult matchup he's had in really quite some time, maybe potentially the whole season. Tough to say for sure. But all in all, I do think he's going to be in a good spot. Has been used in the passing game a lot. We'd love to see that. The issue that I have with him lately is that he has been getting a lot of touchdowns. Touchdowns are a little bit fluky. Let's just say you take the touchdown away against Chicago. doesn't get the over. You take the 2 touchdowns away there, that's 12 points, doesn't get the over against Minnesota. And so there is a little bit of concern there. It's that, more difficult matchup, less likely to score a touchdown. So don't love that as much, but again, it's high scoring game. Same thing for ASB. Like if we are banking on ASB to get over 17 for a fantasy score, we are basically saying he's going to go off. We're basically saying that he is going to score a touchdown. And again, given the matchup that we have, I don't expect him to really have an insanely good game like he has had the past 2 weeks against pretty easy matchups. Now, that being said, Dallas defense has kind of been random. Dallas has not had a normal season. It's either they're blowing teams out or getting blown out. Obviously, if Detroit's doing the blowing out, it's probably going to be because of ASB. And then Laporta, he's been very consistent as a fantasy producer for the most part. That game against Minnesota, however, was not the case there. And then against Chicago, not the case there. Other than that, had been pretty darn consistent. Now, to me, I'm going through this, guys, and sure, 52.7% chance for Laporta. You look at Gibbs, 53. You look at ASB, 53.2 or so. I'm seeing this more of like, and I don't know if I'll do it, but it's more of a game stack. If you guys want to run out basically all 3 of their over fantasy scores, that does tell us a story about how the game could go. It's going to be, all right, the game is going to be more pass heavy. Now, one thing I do hate is that, all right, we got ASB, Laporta for over fantasy score, and Jahmyr Gibbs, and the way that they're going to get there is basically pass catching the ball. And then we have Jared Goff favored for under fantasy score. I hate when there's not the correlated bets there. A little bit thin there. So it's just kind of funny. 52.7 for the under to hit there. Obviously these are all these percents that we are getting are not like crazy high or crazy low, but there is a little bit of stacking opportunity. And then just real quickly, guys, taking a peek at Underdog, just so you guys can see it. Like we're not really getting that many great prop bets here. Again, really the only good one that we're getting is going to be Jake Ferguson. You could do Gibbs. That's a little bit too thin though. So for now, it's just Jake Ferguson. We'll see if like tackles and assist props, kicking props pop up as good options. But for now, just Jake Ferguson over fantasy. All right. And then just showing the full board for that game. Tony Pollard over receiving yards. Again, that's a good edge. Given the discrepancy that we have there, a 3-yard difference. Josh Reynolds over fantasy score. That's one of the better ones that we have on the slate. But I do want to call it like not a big difference, like 4.7 to 4. I mean, they're favoring the over there, but it is a little bit thin there. Not exactly sure we need to go in on that too much. I'm fine with it. To me, I'm looking at this and I'm seeing we got Kirby Joseph over tackles and assists, 55% likely to hit. I'm okay doing that one. And then same thing with Jake Ferguson over fantasy score. Like those two are the best. I could also attach Jahmyr Gibbs for over his rushing attempts. I'd be fine with that. I feel like that's a pretty good one that we are getting as well. And then again, guys, you could potentially run out a Detroit stack for fantasy score as well. I would say you'd want to do Jared Goff over fantasy score as well, even though the data is telling us not to. Just because if you're doing all 3 of those other Detroit players, you want to do that one as well. All right, so it's going into the bet of the day for this game. I don't really feel the need to like force in a bet or anything like that. Like for that Thursday night game, to me, there was some correlation there between that slip that I gave you guys. It was awesome that it hit. Given the fact that Jared Goff is not likely to get his over fantasy score, I don't want to run out that correlated fantasy score slip. So I'm just keeping it simple, going with the 2 best prop bets that we currently have in my eyes as well. But Kirby Joseph, 55% likely to get over 4.5 tackles. Jake Ferguson has a pretty good edge rating for his over 11.5 for a fantasy score. A little bit of touchdown equity baked in there, so I don't exactly love that part. But all in all, I think that these are 2 of the, I don't want to say safer prop bets, but they are just the 2 best ones that we are currently getting on this slate. Now that's going to be all for this video. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to give a like and subscribe. Hit that notification bell as well. If you guys want access to the 95sports.com PrizePicks and Underdog cheat sheet, is available at 95sports.com for just $10 a month. Thank you guys for watching. Let's have a good slate. And as always, let's keep catching.